Welcome to Legends in Leadership, brought to you by ISF and the Carrington Group. Legends in Leadership is an inspirational podcast featuring the stories of leaders who are making a difference. Our goal is to inspire you with the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives.
Welcome to Legends in Leadership. This is your host, Jason Smith. I'm a family officer with the Carrington Group, and joined today by one co-host, Dr. Blair Ritchie of the International Student Foundation. Welcome back.
Hey, good to be with you.
So just the two of us here today, and excited to welcome our guest, Tom Bronson, to episode number 61.
Yay.
But as we do every week, we're going to start with a little bit of leadership trivia, the story of someone who's come from humble beginnings to do interesting and great things. So what do you have for us today, Dr. Blair?
All right, this is a tough one. I'm going to warn you, you're going to miss Kyle today because this was a little history buff would help here. But today's legendary leader became the first casualty of the American Revolution on this day, 250 years ago. You may be surprised that he was an African American born just outside of Boston to an African slave who was married to a Natik Indian. Early in his career, he demonstrated a skill for buying and trading goods, spending a great deal of his time aboard trading and whaling vessels coming in and out of Boston Harbor. As British control over the colonies tightened, tensions escalated between colonists and British soldiers. Our leader was part of a group of Bostonians who confronted a British guard and began taunting him. When fellow soldiers came to the rescue, the bullets started to fly, and this leader was the first of 5 casualties in what became known as the Boston Massacre. You know, martyrdom is a bittersweet leadership gift. Some people have more influence after their passing. And sure enough, this leader's legacy continued to endure, fanning the flames of the American Revolution, as well as the 19th century abolitionist movement and the 20th century civil rights movement. Who is this legendary leader? I'll be back at the close of the program with the answer to this trivia question.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
Well, I want to welcome our guest today, Tom Bronson. He's the founder and president of Mastery Partners, a company that helps business owners maximize business value, design an exit strategy, and transition their business on their terms. He uses proven techniques and strategies to improve business value that he's developed during his career, spanning 100 business transactions, either as a buyer or seller. As a business owner, he's been in your situation 100 times and knows what it takes to craft the right strategy. Before Mastery Partners, Tom served as president and CEO of Granberry Solutions, a VAR and ISV serving the food service, retail, and winery technology markets, with the industry's first recurring revenue model, offering an end-to-end suite of technology to those markets. In addition to being a consultant, Bronson currently serves as past president on the board of Business Navigators, a servant leadership organization that helps businesses through outreach, education, and community service. And he's also the voice of the South Lake Dragon Marching Band and sought-after speaker who frequents a variety of venues. Tom is also an author. His book, Maximize Business Value, Begin with the Exit in Mind, was published in January of this year and is available on Amazon.
Yay.
Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you. Well, you've said it all. I guess we're done.
Well, you know, what comes to mind is that tagline, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Yeah, that's great.
100 business transactions. So did you plan to stop right on the dot, or was that just a natural conclusion?
Actually, surprisingly, I didn't realize it until right when the transaction was coming.
Okay.
So I keep a running tab, as you might imagine, and frankly, I let the thing get out of date for a while, and I thought, before the transaction was about to close, I thought, well, I guess we ought to catch this up, because at Granberry, we did 17 acquisitions, right?
Okay.
And so I had to kind of add those all in, and then I got to the last one where I'm actually selling. I went, holy cow, that's number 100.
Nice.
I said, I got to stop.
Yeah.
And so what did I do? I went and started a new business.
But you didn't buy it.
I told my wife, I said, well, some of these I did start and then sell, right?
Okay.
And so I told my wife, I said, I guess I got to do 99 more because I started over again.
Very good. Very good.
Well, I'm curious about some of the early influences that put you on a path to entrepreneurship. Were you always one that was more creative, out of the box thinking? Was there an early influence that put you on this path?
Wow, I think probably a combination of just who you are, right? Your DNA sort of dictates who you are. I'm a big fan of I think it's a Dallas-based company, the Culture Index.
Oh, yeah.
And great folks, but they say, psychologists say that, your personality traits are pretty much determined, by early adolescence, at least by 12. Some say earlier than that. And so interesting, though, if you have any siblings, the dichotomy, we all grew up in the same environment, yet we are all very different. If we all took the culture, it'd be kind of fun when I have my siblings here for my youngest daughter's graduation in May. Maybe we'll do the culture index just to see kind of where we line up. But I think probably my biggest influence was my parents were entrepreneurs.
Okay.
My dad was what you would call the reluctant entrepreneur. He was working for a big company in Washington, D.C., which is my hometown, and had an opportunity to move south into the Carolinas and partner with somebody out of Miami to kind of start a new business. It was really just the two of them. My dad was doing all the work up in the Carolinas and this guy down in Florida, and it was a radiology company. They were serving doctors and hospitals and things like that. One day out of the blue, when my dad was on the road, because he was on the road constantly. I mean, drove the station wagon, hauled stuff around, did his thing. My mom was his kind of office manager in the office, and when my dad was on the road, the partner called from Miami and said, hey, just checking in on things to my mom, just checking in on things. Yeah, you guys okay? Meeting all your obligations, people paying you okay? How much money's in the bank account? And my mom didn't think twice about it and told him about 3 or 4 days later, because you don't get instant gratification anymore. 3 or 4 days later, or a week later, she starts getting calls, for bounce checks, right?
Wow.
And what is going on? There's plenty of money. What are you talking about? Turns out that this guy basically cleaned it out.
Wow.
And so my dad did what, all young entrepreneurs would do with a large family. And we had, I've got 4 siblings, and loaded us all up in the station wagon and drove down to Miami with the stock certificate to just say, I'm out. Here you go. You got us. Moving on. And the guy, Lou, I'll never forget this, who until the day he died, my dad had a soft spot for, and my mom hated. Until the day she died.
Yeah.
But he actually talked my dad, and so giving him a little bit more money over time and buying the company. And so he was basically the reluctant entrepreneur. He started this business in order to provide for the family. And never actually went to anything other than a trade school to learn some electrical engineering type things. But I mean, he was more of an electrician, but became this great entrepreneur through the years. That just watching him growing up, that was probably the biggest influence and the inspiration for my book.
Yeah.
It's dedicated to him and the lessons that I learned, and he probably has a little part in every chapter. But the last chapter kind of tells the story of what happened to him. And so that really, to circle it out, that was the biggest influence. But then by that nature, being in an entrepreneurial family, I had access to other entrepreneurs. Who do entrepreneurs hang out with?
Yeah.
They hang out with other entrepreneurs. And so I have a long list of great mentors throughout my career that most of them, at least the early days, came from introductions from my dad, who kind of helped shape my thinking. And so that's really where that comes from.
So what was the first sort of entry point for you then in the career?
So after graduating from college, my dad had his business, of course, and he always said, with us growing up, I don't want any of you guys in the business. Right? Yeah, I don't. I want better for you than what I got. Right.
Yeah.
And so what happened? My brother and I wound up in the business. Right. And it was just a temporary gig for me because I have. 3 concentrations in my degree. Computer science, completely worthless because I got the degree at 85. Marketing and management, which is still helpful today, and media advertising. And so I thought, well, he was getting ready to implement a new computer system. They were doing everything by hand, right? It was a little $2 million business, right? They were doing everything by hand. And so he wanted to implement a new computer system. So my first job out of college, I literally graduated on a Saturday, went to work for him on Tuesday, thinking, well, this won't last long, right? And then while I was working for him, I started an advertising agency because that was really my passion. I wanted to do that, and started a couple of other companies just kind of as side hustles, increase the earning potential opportunity. And then in 1989, my brother and I had the opportunity to kind of take over the family business, and it was doing about $2 million a year, as I said. Well, the inspiration for me was, this will make me sound like a greedy bastard, but I'm really not.
Title of your next book.
Yeah, exactly right, greedy bastard, exactly. Actually, that's what most people title this book, right? But he came into my office when my brother and I were taking over, and I was trying to learn all of the things that I needed to do to kind of run the business. And one of the things was, let's do a payroll, and it was year end, and so we were all, I did the normal payroll, but then Dad was running a bonus payroll, and he was getting $150,000 in bonus. And when we're talking about it, he says to me, you and your brother play your cards right, and every year you'll be able to split a bonus that size. And I said, split it? We want to double it. What are you talking about? I said, we want to double it for each of us. That's where we want to take this business. And so that was kind of the beginning. And from 89 until 95, we grew the company to 20 million in revenue, from 2 to 20 in 6 years. And then simultaneously convinced 4 other companies in the Southeast to merge together. And that's where we really got into M&A and understanding kind of the mechanics of how that works. And believe it or not, back in, this should have been 95, the first meeting with all of those entrepreneurial businesses was on July 16th, 1995. And we merged all 4 companies together on January 2nd, 1996, without advisors. We did this without paying anybody. We were just very reasonable, logical thinking business people. We all agreed to formulas that we were going to use, and everybody was going to have to use the same formulaic equation. We looked at everybody's financials. We were all very open and honest, and we just merged it. It was a tax-free stock exchange.
Okay.
And that's where I learned that term.
Yep.
And away we went. We did several more acquisitions, and then ultimately sold the business to a publicly traded company. Our objective was to, all right, let's raise some capital. Let's
consolidate some
because it was a highly fragmented business at the time. And let's get some capital. Let's do some more acquisitions. Take the company public once we're sizable enough. Now we're at 60 million, right? And with all these companies together, and take the company public, and then roll up the industry. That was our strategy. Well, we met Patrick Kelly, who's since passed away, one of the early adopters of The Great Game of Business, another great book, and he said, "I see what you're doing, and I know your strategy. I've already done this in a different sector of healthcare. Why don't you just let me buy? Why do you want to go through the pain and suffering of taking the company public when I'll just why don't you let me buy you with our publicly traded stock and then use that as your commodity to go out and trade.
Oh.
And so we sold to PSS in 97 and did 72 more acquisitions.
Wow.
Over the next 4 years.
You were busy.
4 years.
Wow.
So, well, that sector at that time was ripe for a roll-up, right? And so fortunately, in a lot of these, so even though I'm the buyer in that circumstance, I'm using somebody else's money, right? You know, I get the benefit of using another commodity. But over the course of the 100 transactions, to go back to that comment, you know, we've seen that. You know, what is that?
We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Yeah, I have made every sale or purchase mistake possible, and most of them twice, right? So the book is really about kind of learning the lessons of what I've learned, but more importantly, it's about teaching entrepreneurs to start thinking about exit strategy. It's my position that exit strategy is good business strategy, because if you define what your exit looks like, it actually influences, if not completely takes over, business strategy decisions, right? If you're getting ready to sell the company in 6 months, you're not going to invest, $8 million in capital in a new plant that's not going to get a return on investment, right? So you start thinking like those things. So I've said, as I coach a lot of startups and CEOs, I say, don't even start without having the exit in mind, and that's why it's sort of the tagline on the book. In fact, the original title for the book was "The Case for Exit Strategy," how to build value, understand your options and exit your business on your terms. And it was big letters, the case for exit strategy. And I wrote the book. And I started visiting with some of my clients, and I said, here's a paper copy, or here's an electronic copy of my book. I'd love for you to read it, give me some feedback, tell me what you think. And almost universally, they said, man, great content. I really, your voice comes through. You're no nonsense, tell it like it is, but don't ever come within 50 miles of my building with a book that advertises exit strategy, right? Because I don't want my employees to get all scared about exits.
Yeah.
So I've taken a different approach with all of my businesses. I start on day one, whether it's a startup or whether I'm buying companies. I go in and I tell the employees, this is not the last transaction of your life. I'm going to grow this business. I intend to maximize the value of this business, and then we're going to sell this business. And if you help us get there, then you'll be rewarded, along the way. And so, and at exit. And so I've always said exit strategy, I'm very transparent, share that and so the day that I actually close a transaction or sell a company, nobody's shocked and awed, right? They all know it's coming.
Yeah.
So, but most business owners don't do that. They don't think about that. They don't want to think about that. And it's one of those things that when they started their business or when they bought their business, they're thinking, I'm going to grow this thing and I'm going to, sell it for a lot of money and go retire. But then they get caught up in the day-to-day operation of the business. And although that exit is in the back of their mind, it's always 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years.
It's the rolling 3 to 5 years.
Well, it is. It's funny because, the average entrepreneur, if you poll, if we had 100 entrepreneurs in the room and we said, when are you going to execute your exit strategy? Universally, we would hear 3 to 5 years. The average entrepreneur says that for 17 years before they take action.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And why is that? Why don't they take action? It's because whatever they're doing in their business, they're probably really good at.
Yeah.
If they own a restaurant, man, they are good at making food and pleasing people. Right?
That's part of their identity.
Exactly. It's all wrapped up in who they are, and they're really good at it, but they don't really even understand What does an exit look like? How
Right.
do I do this? It's going to be like when I bought and sold 10 houses in the last 25 years. And so, I'm just going to call somebody, we're going to get it listed, and 3 months later it's sold, right? So they don't even think about what it takes to prepare a business for a future transaction. And so that to me is what exit strategy is all about.
Yeah.
Identifying, what are the options for exit? Because again, most entrepreneurs don't even understand all of their options that are available to them. They'll think about, well, I'm going to sell it,
Yeah.
right? Sell it to a third party. Well, have you thought about, one of the internal sale options, selling it to your management, selling it to the family, selling it to your employees through an ESOP? Have you thought about just hiring, if it's throwing off a lot of cash and you don't want to give up that cash component, have you thought about just hiring management and transitioning from being an owner-operator to being an owner-investor?
Yeah,
By the way,
board member.
And those guys think differently.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they treat the business differently. They think differently.
Yep.
You gotta be thinking about those. Or are you going to sell it to a third party? Are you going to sell it to an individual? Are you going to sell it to a financial buyer? Are you going to sell it to a strategic? So we walk through with our clients, trying to understand what all the different options are. And then we're agnostic to what the outcome is.
Right.
We're not a business broker. We're not an investment banker. We don't care what the outcome looks like. Our objective is to kind of assess the business the way it is today and understand where it is they want to be, when they want to be there, and then designing a custom roadmap to get from where they are to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And then help them along the path. And so that's really what the book is all about, is kind of getting entrepreneurs into the mindset of thinking about the exit, thinking about what it means to exit. That doesn't mean I'm abandoning my business, I'm abandoning my people, I'm taking the money and run. No, it's about
Right.
being intentional and planning for those things, because it just doesn't happen overnight. The average business, it takes something like 18 months to sell. But more shocking is on businesses that are less than 100 million in revenue, the stats are horrific. Each year, about 250,000 of them come on the market, which is about 4% of the market, right? 250,000 come on the market, but only 42,000 actually close a transaction. 42,000. That is 17%.
Wow.
That means that 83% of businesses that come on the market this year will not find a transaction. So their options then are limited. You can pull it off the market and then go back on the market later, kind of get ready for it and do that. And we hear about those things all the time. You can liquidate, you can just run it until you die,
Yeah.
and then close it. You got other but if you're intentional about what it is that you want to accomplish, then you can actually probably accomplish those goals. So it's really all about helping entrepreneurs start to think about those things
Right.
Into the future. And I've gone way off. Of
No,
your
it's
question.
helpful because it aligns with a lot of the thinking that we're helping entrepreneurs implement from the personal side. So if you can begin to get excited about what the entrance plan looks like for life after the exit,
Oh, yeah.
then that really creates that motivation to stay engaged, and to
Yes.
see it through. And then also helping them understand that type of planning is the best thing they can do for their employees
gosh,
and their
yeah.
key people.
And for themselves, really, honestly. The spoiler alert, I'll tell you what's going on in the last chapter of the book, where I tell the rest of my dad's story. When he sold his business completely, when we sold it to PSS World Medical, and he was no longer involved in the business, his self-worth went to zero. Because he had wrapped his entire existence for 30 years around this business. And 3 years, he was 55 when we sold it, so a year younger than I am now. And 3 years later, we put him in the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And it was actually a week ago today, 21 years ago. When the official cause of death was cancer, the real cause of death was he didn't want to live anymore,
Yeah.
because he no longer had a self-worth. So it's so important for entrepreneurs to think about. We call it Act 3. What are you going to do in Act 3?
Yeah.
What does your plan look like? What's your value going to be? Where are you going to get your desire to get up in the morning and go do something? And if you're a golfer, great. You probably can't play golf 7 days a week, right? I mean,
that lasts for a couple months.
I could for maybe 2 or 3
Right,
months, right?
right.
And then my golf course would ask me, "Will you please stop coming? We need the course to to get back in
Give us some
shape.
time to heal."
Give us some time to heal, right? And so, but people don't think about that. I've got some clients in. Interestingly enough, as a baby boomer, and when I came through the baby boomer door, we closed and locked it, right? 1964, I was the last guy through the door. But many of my clients are also baby boomers, but ranging all the way up to the other end, which is about 76 years old.
Right.
And so they're in their 70s, and they're saying things like, well, I really only want to work for another 4 or 5 years, right? Because, the baby boomers, we invented the 60-hour work week. We like to work, right? And we tie our identity to our business life, right? And as I tell my kids, I've got one millennial and 2 Gen Yers, and I tell them we invented the 60-hour work week. You're welcome. Right? But as I talk to my clients that are in their 70s, I go, what is your resistance to do these things? And they said, well, I don't want to stop working.
Right.
I'm not asking you to stop working. And I'm not, but give an example without giving any names. I've got a client in Pennsylvania. Parents are in their 70s, and the son is in his 40s. And he is the heir apparent. He's going to take over the business, right? But the parents still do things that the son has no idea what is being done, right? Because they're not transitioning at all in that. And so I'm kind of helping them think about that. I'm like, hey, what happens if you guys ride to work together in the morning? What happens if you get broadsided by a truck, and you're gone? Will the business survive? We know it's going to your son, but he doesn't even have the training needed to take over this
what is he inheriting?
business.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're not asking you to step aside. Maybe Act 3 for you is you're going to continue working until you die, but you at least have been intentional about transitioning the business so that you know that it'll survive and it'll be your legacy. So you start thinking about it that way.
And that's where we start to tap into the leadership conversations, that true leaders grow more leaders.
Yes.
So it starts to give them that purpose and that passion to say, okay, I'm not reducing my self-worth by transitioning these things. I'm actually increasing my total impact in the world.
Oh yeah, and I love that. I mean, just the reality is that those leaders are great leaders, and their sphere of influence is fairly small, right?
Yeah.
But they've got a real opportunity here to teach the next generation. He's already got a son, so they've got a grandson in the business. He's already got a son in the business.
Oh, wow.
And to be intentional about teaching them how to be good leaders, right?
Yeah.
If that's your exit strategy. And then it leaves the world a better place, right? When people are more intentional about kind of passing forward those lessons.
Well, and you find yourself dealing with why do we work? Why do we start a business? Why do those are really deep discussions that I'm sure you as a consultant you might come in and guide that conversation to even embrace why it is we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I was going to mention the concept of conscious capitalism. As that grows, you've got a hunger for people who want to have an impact and a purpose in the world through their work.
Right.
And you've got the baby boomers, who are looking for that next act. So leaving the business doesn't have to be the answer.
No, it doesn't. No, and there's all kinds of ways for entrepreneurs to go out and get involved and volunteer in various organizations. You mentioned Business Navigators, at least here in Dallas. It's an organization of servant leaders.
Right.
These are all business people who recognize that somewhere along their path they were given a leg up. I've been given so many legs up I can't even begin to count. Right? And they were given a leg up, but now they're passionate about paying that forward and teaching other business leaders and and young people and young entrepreneurs. You can be 60 years old and be a young entrepreneur, right?
Right.
And learn from people who've been there, done that. And so I think Conscious Capitalism is an amazing organization. Just introduced to it, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so. Had the opportunity to hear Curtis Height over at Improving. He's an amazing entrepreneur.
Yes.
But to talk about it in terms of, hey, profit is not a nasty word, but be intentional about what your objectives are here. You have to make profit to pay.
That's the
people,
resource to
right?
have the impact.
It is.
Yeah.
Without the profit, you can't have any impact on the world. You can't hire people. You can't employ families.
Yeah.
You can't do those things. And so I just, when I heard him speak, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
In
He was
fact,
on our podcast pretty early on, and shared
no kidding.
some of
Well,
that.
Business
balance.
Navigators last year awarded him and Charlene Aldridge the very first Servant Leadership Award.
Oh, yeah.
Annual award. It's the Dan Stack Servant Leadership Award.
Great.
For Business Navigators, and so it was just nice to hear his story. I mean, it's awesome to have somebody who is passionate about paying forward their legacy.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Well, our time certainly flies by with great guests like
We
yourself.
We can't be over. There's so much more.
Yeah. Well, so tell us where they can find the book and connect with you.
On Amazon. Sure. I don't know if it's on if you've got it, but you can find it on Amazon. Either Amazon, go type in my name, or Maximize B. When you get to the B, it'll come up.
Okay.
Maximize Business Value. It is on sale there, but you can also connect with me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, though, I've kind of a rule. I only connect with people I know.
Okay.
On LinkedIn. However, if you send me a note and say, hey, I saw you on Legends in Leadership and I'd love to connect with you, then that person I would
have the
connect
right context.
with, right?
Great.
And give me some sort of a content.
So for your speaking engagements and also your consultancy.
Go to my
they can reach you through
website, www.mastery, that's master with a Y, partners.com, and you can see my beautiful caricature, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
That looks exactly like me.
It does. I can't believe it.
Except a little maybe smoother complected. And so, but yeah, we do a lot of speaking on the topic of this and innovation and other things. But
Great.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with some of your listeners.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us today.
Really enjoyed it.
And we'll see if you have a guest for our trivia. Do you want to refresher real
Well,
quick?
I do, but the problem is that I don't think that he's an African American, and so as you're reading that, I'm thinking Samuel Adams. And what a great legacy!
Great
he
legacy,
was,
yeah.
Then, but
His beer's good too.
but it couldn't be Nathaniel Hawthorne.
No,
maybe.
no,
Okay,
no.
So,
all right,
I've
so give it to us.
I've
please.
just
right.
exhausted everybody.
Well, here you go. Crispus Attucks.
Oh, wow.
No, Crispus.
Crispus Attucks.
He owes me money.
I know. Well, and here's the odd part of it. Martin Luther King Jr. was so fond of referring to Crispus Attucks as just the moral courage that he had, and truthfully, he would never have been known, and he not got shot at the Boston Massacre.
Oh, that's true.
He would not have been known had he not died at the Boston Massacre the way he did, and he became kind of a legend in his passing, and a very inspiring story for the African American community.
Wow.
Oh, absolutely, for everybody.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us on our 61st episode of Legends in Leadership. And again, thanks to our guest, Tom Bronson. And remember this, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader.
Legends in Leadership is brought to you by the Carrington Group. Carrington Group is a family office with a passion for helping business leaders and their families make smart choices and fulfill their highest aspirations. To learn more about the Carrington Group, visit their website at www.carringtonfo.com or Google Carrington Group, Dallas, Texas. ISF is committed to leadership development for aged-out foster care and orphaned youth. ISF's mission is to transform these youth into tomorrow's leaders with scholarships, mentoring, and leadership training. To learn more about ISF, visit their website at isfsite.org or Google International Student Foundation to learn more.
Securities offered through Regulus Advisors, LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Regal Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors are affiliated entities. Carrington Group and this broadcast are independent of Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors.